On today's episode of Too Many Projects, Not Enough Time, we try and go racing. Alright, so you might be asking, what the heck is the Pennsyltucky Grass Drag Challenge? And to be honest, it's a completely frivolous and pointless way for me to try and do more racing. And scratch that. It's the most important grass drag series of the year. Where the challenge comes in at is the distance you have to go to get to these races. The one race on Saturday is all the way on the east side of the state, and the other race that I was planning on going to is on the other side, and I was going to only go to the one on Sunday. Now the challenge is to go to both of them. It's going to be like 800 or 900 miles worth of travel in 2 days. Sort of like a budget wannabe hot rod drag week. Probably going to show up to work on Monday, reenacting the Night of the Living Dead. So this whole idea just has poor decision written all over it. Usually these couple of months in the fall are just a thrash fest of trying to get everything, getting it running and keeping it running for the grass drag season. Add to it, we threw in asphalt this year, so that was a whole bunch of extra work. And now I'm thinking about trying to run an ATV at the last race of the year, because why not? Now, I had the old Zilla out last year, and it actually made it through a race without breaking. So I kind of I don't want to end that winning streak. So it might be time for the old 250R to make a comeback. Now, I have not ran this in probably 3-4 years, not even really sure. As you can see, it has been sitting here for quite some time. So it wouldn't hurt to throw some fresh gasoline in this thing and just give it a good run and clean out the cobwebs. Well, I'm just kidding. We're not going to actually clean anything, because cobwebs are good for performance. Now, hopefully, since it's a Honda, it will require almost zero maintenance to get running. And this thing's not going to be nearly as fast as the Zilla, and she's a little bit wore out, and I mainly just use this as a trail bike, not really for racing purposes. And she's definitely getting a little bit worse for the wear. That rear grab bar is getting bent further and further up, and I don't know if it was from when it rolled down the hill that one time or coming back too far on a wheelie. The chain is definitely getting wore out, but don't have the motivation to really replace that. And there's also some issues with the bearings back here in the carrier. Things kind of wobble a bit. Hopefully there's not any old gas left in here. Yeah, there's something. Just siphoned out all that old nasty gas, which is going to get thrown into the car. Alright, let's see if this thing will fire up. Might be in gear. Alright, found neutral. Choke would probably help. Oh, there she goes. So after running things, it's probably a good idea to check and see if there's mouse nests getting sucked into the intake. I probably got to be careful because this is probably going to fall apart and break. Can't say I didn't call that, I guess. Those cats are not doing their jobs. Well, on the plus side, it looks like they didn't chew into the filter, so hopefully we're still good to go. Not that we weren't just going to run it anyways. So we're probably going to install a new old stock bumper on there. Yep, you can't beat new old stock parts. Well, alright, I'd say that's fully tuned up and tweaked in and race ready. It's sort of trapped with junk at the moment, but we just have to start like 8 other things to shuffle it out of the way. Of course, the battery's dead. So we seem to have run into a slight snag. For some reason, the clutch is not disengaging. Now we're getting, movement from the cable. Everything seems to be working, but I can't put it in the gear. It just slams in the gear and stalls out. And if you put it into gear and try and kick it over with the clutch in, everything's still turning over. Something's bound up in the clutch basket. So the only way I was able to get the clutch basket freed up on the three-wheeler was to put it all the way in 5th gear and then keep trying to rock the thing back and forth in gear, rolling the tires on the ground. And after like about 10 minutes of doing that, it finally broke free. So even though it's getting late on a Friday, we still need to rejet this and that and reclutch that. Knew I should have recovered this seat. Now the foam soaked up a bunch of water and is getting heavy. That's a huge performance loss. And the rain washed away some of the speed dust. Plans for the Buzzard include rejetting, maybe some minor clutch tweaks, and hopefully just drive it. We're going to run this in the stock fan class down at Chicory. And if it doesn't win, I'm blaming it on the waterlogged seat. I don't know why people would prefer fuel injection when you can get covered in premix, changing jets all the time. Now we're ready to rock. Now, plan for the mod sled is going to Pocono. Gonna run this in the vintage modified. So we need to do some more clutching and jetting and anything else we can try and figure to make this thing work better. And the potato sack is also waterlogged. I mean, all this rain, it came really close to actually washing these things off. And that would be a problem. I think if you get enough of a rust layer, that sort of acts as an insulator, just like those fancy ceramic coatings are. For some reason the exhaust kept falling apart, so we've got another nice billet pine spacer in there, keeping things solid. And we've got new safety wire, keep the mufflers on. Yep. Alright, well, another spring combo. Yellow's a good color, so we're going to try that. So at the beginning of the season, we actually had 3 separate antifreeze leaks. One at the bottom of the radiator, one at the input here, and also through the head gaskets. Now this has the separate O-ring for the cooling jacket, so we weren't getting any antifreeze into the combustion chamber, so it wasn't a big deal. Fixed that gasket because it was installed wrong, and the other 2 problems solved themselves, which is the best way to fix things. If you ignore it long enough, sometimes that happens. There it is. Back together. Not where I want it to be. Could use more tuning. Could use more time. But we're out of that. If you try and wait until a project is actually completely done, you'll never use it. But maybe that's just a personal problem. Old 12 valve's almost ready. And we're stuck. I forgot. Wet grass is the arch nemesis of the Cummins. Time to fill up the old 12 valve with some waste motor oil. Oh yeah. It loves it.
A gallon of PCP.
Really hope it doesn't start raining. Well, it's dark 30 and we're starting this journey. Since we're using the old Cummins to do most of the mileage this weekend, we're going to see what kind of fuel economy we can squeeze out of her. Of course, this trip started off with rain, so that's a good sign. Well, at least all my dash lights decided to quit working. I mean, you really don't need to worry about speed or oil pressure. Oh yeah, coasting for fuel economy. Made it out to Pocono with about 15 or 20 minutes to spare before registration closed, but there was a pretty sweet turnout, and those guys really put in a lot of effort getting that track fixed up out there. Almost forgot. The most important part of any race is having the pickled eggs. Call me superstitious, but if you don't have the pickled eggs, things are just going to go awry. Well, that's a beautiful way to end a day. Turned into a mud pit. Not much you can do when Mother Nature kind of throws a wrench into the works. So we're heading back. Actually had a good day. Brought her home first place, and now we're celebrating with some pork rinds. And looking at all the hundreds of miles that we got to drive home through this crap. Stocked up on copious amounts of energy drinks for this weekend. Everything is soaked. I'm gonna have like 5 extra pounds of water and all the gear going racing tomorrow now. And unfortunately, the sled's getting washed off even more. There's hardly any traces of dust left. Well, so here we are on the side of the road, out in the middle of the interstate, trying to figure out a brand new mystery noise that just developed on the front end. Kind of feels like a bearing, but we can't find anything obviously wrong yet, so we're going to continue to sit here on the side of the road and contemplate our fate. So of course we don't have the proper drive for the factory jack, so we had to painstakingly use this nice import channel lock, and we found nothing. So we're going to continue on and see if the problem develops. Oh yeah, and the dash lights are working again. So yeah, they just fixed themselves, so we're going to forget about this problem until it happens again at some point. Now the noise was, I can't tell if it's still partly there, or maybe I'm just listening a little bit too hard. We turned the radio up a little bit louder, and that seemed to kind of solve things too, so we're going to keep trucking. Alright, so I think we narrowed down the cause of why the dash lights keep going off. You have to drive for about 2.5 hours on the interstate and then stop at a rest area. And sure enough, bam, your lights go back out. Aha! You sneeze 3 times, and they come back on. Oh yeah, it's real healthy to breathe when you're trying to hook up the trailer. Of course we waited till the last second to check the air pressure. And we're just on the road again. Boy, it's nice having vehicles that are nice and quiet. a good time running down at Chicory as usual. The old Buzzard ran about the same as it normally did, and the three-wheeler, it held its own, but, some driver improvement could be used. Well, that was a fun weekend of racing, and we're back to rain. Just can't seem to shake this stuff. So we're celebrating with some high-calorie fast food here, since we don't have to worry about, racing weight anymore. Time to start heading her back home towards the barn. Eventually, I got to seal this roof to keep the water from dripping in. Just what a beautiful, beautiful evening. Well, that was quite the weekend. And now that we're back trying to wrap up the carnage and clean things up. Oh, I'm just kidding. We didn't clean anything up. Mud's a good preservative. But anyways, that really turned out to be a great time. And one of those weekends that you're going to remember for quite a while. Now, prior to the Thursday night before this weekend, I was not planning on going to these events. Well, the one on Sunday I was, but Saturday was completely not. I mean, the drive, it was all the way across the state. It was a lot of hours. I'd basically written it off that I wasn't going to make it. Thursday night, might have been having a couple conversations, and next thing you know, it kind of popped into my head that there's a chance that maybe I should go out there. Now, there's always no shortage of excuses why you should not do something. The weather wasn't going to be great. It was a long drive. Didn't have time. My equipment wasn't ready. The list just goes on. And you can talk yourself out of anything if you think about it long enough. But sometimes, you just got to go for it. You got to make your own adventure. Life's not going to stand around and wait for you. Sometimes you got to buy the ticket, take the ride. And it's not always going to work out. But heck, most of the times when something doesn't work out or ends up going awry, that's some of the most memorable times. The old 250R made it through the weekend without breaking down, so that was a minor win. However, I ended up breaking out both times while I was running it in bracket class. It just kept going too fast, but, probably some driver error and traction issues that trying to find second gear. But at least it was out there racing. Way too many times, people rationalize and talk themselves out of actually doing something that they might otherwise enjoy. And that's not to say that you got to just go off and do cross-country road trips all the time at the drop of a hat when you don't have, any resources or money or funding to do it. I mean, sometimes you got to work. But you got to take advantage of those situations when, sure, it might not be practical, it might not be a guaranteed success, or you might not be guaranteed to make it the whole way there and back. But those type of trips can leave memories that last a lifetime. On Friday afternoon, when I had a bunch of work to do and not a lot of time to do it, believe me, I was having some kind of second thoughts and thinking, I really shouldn't even bother trying to go racing on Saturday. It just wasn't going to work out. You got to be your own motivational speaker sometimes. That ain't Barn Fresh Racing style to just sit back and say, I don't feel like driving the whole way out there for 5 hours. No, we're going to throw a bunch of used motor oil in the tank and give it a shot. Keep your standards low and your spirits high.